We are still on elasticity, and this elasticity, as we said, we are looking at the calculations, which calculations were done, and we saw our figures, how we conclude with those figures, and those figures, the moment you calculate and realize how much you have got, say 2, 1, and 0.2, and so on, we looked at the conclusions that when it is less than 1, when it is greater than 1, then we know it is elastic demand. And when it is 1, it is unitary. When it is less than 1, it is inelastic. When it is infinite, then we know it is perfectly elastic. And when it is 0, it is perfectly inelastic. Those are the conclusions that we looked at. Now, we have to use the other part of economics, and that is the illustrations. I told you that economics we cannot do with illustrations. Diagrams are part of the studying. There's no way you can avoid them. So we normally begin with the definitions, explanation, then illustration can be done mathematically for the scientists, and then the arts people, we use the illustration. So that's what we do. So we are going to have now 5 diagrams to illustrate those conclusions that we have talked about. The first one we are going to have is, I'm going to use the board, and put on all the diagrams as we use them. So these are 5 diagrams which we are going to have. I hope they are going to be clear. Remember, we have got what we call inelastic when the demand is inelastic demand. And then we have elastic demand. Then we have perfectly elastic demand. And then we have perfectly inelastic demand. And then we have what we call unitary elasticity, or unitary elasticity. And just say unitary. So elastic demand, unitary, and we label as we normally do. We put a price here, origin, quantity. Price here, origin, quantity. So those are the labelings. Now we have to put in the diagrams, to put in the curves which are supposed to represent this. Inelastic demand, you will find that it is that kind of demand. And what do we mean by inelastic here? We said a bigger change in quantity demanded, in price. A bigger change in price, you can see, and there is a big change in price. The price has increased with a bigger figure than the quantity. So a bigger change in price leads to a slight change in the quantity demanded. That means the elasticity of demand for this commodity is inelastic. So the demand curve is a bit steep. It is steep, it is not gentle. That means a bigger change or increase in price leads to a smaller decrease in the quantity demanded. That is what we call the inelastic demand. Then we have the elastic demand. Elastic demand, where let me use all reduction and we see the opposite. So P2, P1. With elastic demand, as you can see here, can put it here, elastic demand. The demand curve is gently sloping, meaning that a big reduction, or we use the increase, we can change it to increase. A small increase in the price leads to a very big reduction in the quantity demanded. The price has changed slightly, but the reduction in the price, in quantity demanded, is very big. So this means that it is having elastic demand, that you don't play around with the price. The moment you reduce or change the prices slightly, you are likely to have a very big change in quantity demanded. In the same way, if the price has been in P1 and you reduce a bit, you are going to get a very big increase in the quantity demanded. That one we call it elastic demand. So we say this one is greater than 1. This one is less than 1. So if we put there the mathematical representation, this one is less than 1. It is less than 1. Possibly it may confuse the student and thinks that is a K. So it is less than 1. It's less than 1. This one is greater than 1. Now when we move to perfectly elastic demand. Perfectly elastic demand means what? Perfectly elastic demand. It means what? That the change is infinite. When the figure is infinite, one student was asking, what is an infinite? When it is too big, extremely big, endless, that is infinite. This one is horizontal, that is the demand curve, which is P. It is horizontal, that the price remains the same. It does not change. The price is the same, P1. Even if you move to this or this, you can increase. The price does not change, but the demand is changing, or it is reducing or increasing. In other words, the change here in the quantity demanded does not depend on price, possibly other factors, but price remains the same. Even if you do what, it is the same price. it's the same demand. Then here is the perfect elastic demand curve. This is the demand. And here we are saying, even if P1, P2, even if you increase the price by whatever percentage, the change in quantity demanded will remain the same. It will not change. The price can be increased, but the demand will remain the same. It will not increase, it will not change, it will not reduce. That is what we call the perfect inelastic demand. The moment you change the price, you are not going to see any problem, anything to do with the change in quantity demanded. And we said that is in most cases, the example of that is in most cases with medicine. That if you, that's what I said yesterday or the other day, that the moment you go to the hospital and they tell you that the dose costs 100,000 for your sickness, the moment you say it costs 100,000, and then after 1 month you go back and you are suffering from the same disease or same sickness, they tell you now it has gone to 18,000, 180,000. You will not say, I will not take the dose. You still take the same dose at whatever price, whether it is very low, whether it's so that one is perfect inelastic demand. The demand cannot change. Even if you change the price, the way you would wish to change the price, the demand will remain the same. So that one we call it perfect inelastic demand. Then we have what we call the unitary. Unitary, in most cases, the percentage change in we assume that the line here is the gap here. The gap here is equal to this. So when you divide this by this, you get 1. So the change in price, the percentage change in price leads to an unequal percentage change in quantity demanded. This one we call it unitary elasticity. Unitary elasticity. So that's how we can illustrate the 5 conclusions of elasticity, price elasticity of demand, and they are very, very important whenever you are trying to illustrate. Whenever you try to illustrate the demand, the price elasticity of demand, you must make sure that these curves are well drawn. Don't indicate the elastic to be inelastic. You should know that inelastic, it is a steep curve. This one is gently sloping. This one is straight. This one is straight vertically. This one is straight horizontally. And this one is supposed to be 50-50. The change in price must be equal to the change in quantity demanded. That is, this part must be equal to this if you go on the right scale. So those are the illustrations that you have to use whenever you are illustrating price elasticity of demand. I told you we begin with defining what price elasticity of demand is. Then from there we go to the calculations, which you looked at very well, and then we make conclusions as to how those things can be illustrated after we have finished calculating. These ones we get them, these illustrations, after we have calculated. Before calculating, it may be difficult for us to illustrate this diagram with these diagrams. Now the question comes, what is the importance of this? What is the importance? Practical applicability. Practically, where do we find this elasticity? Where do we use it? Is it relevant, or we waste time studying this price elasticity of demand? Is it relevant to us? Is it relevant to an economist? Is it relevant to the day-to-day running of the economy or the home? Because these elasticities, are we just doing them because they are part of the syllabus, or they can be used? So it's very important to know their applicability, and soon we shall be looking at them. But before we look at the applicability, what determines this elasticity for a commodity? That's the question that we have to move to. What determines this elasticity? So we say determinants of price elasticity of demand. I told you we abbreviate, sometimes we abbreviate by yes, we are looking at the determinants of price elasticity of demand. That what are the determinants? I think this, let me make it clearer. Determinants of price elasticity of demand. I told you there are some abbreviations when we are studying which are allowed, and this is one of them. The moment you see P with that E and D, then you know it is price elasticity of demand. And when we come to another, which is income elasticity of demand, and when we come to another, it's called cross price elasticity of demand. That's how we write them, but we are going to see them as we move ahead, as we move on. So determinants, what factors determine? What factor make an influence on whether the commodity is going to have elastic demand or inelastic demand, or perfect elastic demand or perfect inelastic demand? So that's what we are looking at now. One of them is availability of substitutes. Availability of substitutes. Availability of substitutes. Availability of substitutes. That is the first, not the first, but one of the factors that will determine the elasticity. And we normally say that the moment a commodity has substitutes and close substitutes, then the elasticity is going to be elastic. If a commodity has many close substitutes, and the example you can give still will be with the soft drinks. You take a Coca-Cola, you take a Pepsi Cola, you take a Reham Cola. These are close substitutes. So if there is any slight increase in the price of one of them, people will abandon it and go to the other substitutes. So when you are dealing in a commodity which has many substitutes, then you are likely to face the elastic demand. When you are saying you know that this product has elastic demand, the more I increase the price, people will run away to the other substitutes. So you have to know that the seller must know that this commodity has many substitutes. And if a commodity has no cross substitutes, then it will have inelastic demand. So we say goods with close substitutes, closed substitutes are going to face the elastic demand. We'll have elastic demand. You have elastic demand. The elasticity will be having elastic demand, meaning that if you are drawing a demand curve, for such commodity, this demand curve will definitely be horizontal, gently sloping. The moment you are having a commodity with closed substitutes, you are going to find this diagram. This is what you are going to have, because a slight change in the price is going to lead to a big change in quantity which is demanded. Therefore, people who are dealing with the closed substitutes, they are going to face this demand curve. Their demand curve is going to be gently sloping, indicating that it has competition. This shows competition. You don't play around with the prices, and you can play around with the prices. You reduce your price slightly, people are going to run to your commodity, because other products will have remained at a high price. So it's important to know that this commodity has elastic demand. Commodities which usually have no closed substitutes, they are usually having inelastic demand. Even if you increase the price, people consume those products. An example we have, we are saying that a commodity with no closed substitute, the demand is going to be inelastic. The example that we can have for inelastic demand, or the real experience of the inelastic demand, is electricity. Even if you say the unit is 1,000, people still buy. Even if you increase it to 1,800 per unit, people will have to buy it, because this commodity has inelastic demand. It has inelastic demand. So commodities which have inelastic demand, which have no closed substitutes, we are not saying they don't have substitutes, but they have no closed substitutes. Yes, when the power goes off, definitely, I know you put on a generator, you use the solar, but these are not, they are substitutes, but not very close. That someone will tell you, power has gone, you can remain watching the TV, you can have the light, but you cannot iron, you cannot cook. That means it is a substitute, but not very close, because of the nature of electricity. So, goods with the closed substitutes have elastic demand, and we say goods without closed substitutes. We avoid the word without substitutes, because there is almost no commodity which has no substitute. It's only that it's not closed substitute. Because even the oxygen that we have, God gave us oxygen if you have a child. But in case you need oxygen which is not enough, they put you on oxygen which is artificial for some hours. It cannot be forever, but for some hours you are going to have that oxygen. So there is a substitute, but not closed substitute. So it's important we use closed substitutes. That one is very important when we are talking about these substitutes. So goods without closed substitutes have inelastic demand. That's what you have to know. So the presence or availability of substitutes is a determinant of the price elasticity of demand. It is a very big determinant of elasticity, price elasticity of demand. So, and now the next one is the degree of necessity. The degree of necessity. Number two is the degree of necessity. degree of necessity, yes, the degree of necessity. And we say commodities which are necessary, which cannot be avoided, the commodities which you cannot avoid in life, they normally have inelastic demand. And goods which you can avoid, they have elastic demand. So when you look at the commodities degree of necessity, we have said goods which you cannot easily avoid, they are necessary goods. You must use them, you must have them. So their demand is usually having inelastic demand. Their price elasticity of demand is inelastic. And we say necessities have inelastic demand, while the luxurious goods have elastic demand. They have elastic demand. Then the luxurious goods, they normally have elastic demand. But the necessities, what are the necessities? Necessities like a medicine, necessities like a food, clothes. These are necessities. Clothes, medicine. These are necessities. This is not in terms of dose, but you need some panel, you need some small medicine, clothes. All these are very, very necessary in life. You cannot do away with them. Sometimes we even say shelters, rent, where you're going to live. That one, even if the landlord comes and says from 50 to 60 or to 70, you still have to live somewhere. So you will pay painfully, but you have to pay for that. So the demand is inelastic. It remains there. You may be staying at a place where they are renting you and they have many tenants. And the landlord comes and says, we have increased the rent from 80,000 to 120. Yes, people will complain here and there, but still they will be living in those houses. They may not remain empty. If they remain empty to be a short time, the demand is inelastic. So that one is inelastic demand. But now when you go to luxurious things, somebody thinks twice. He wanted to buy a DVD player. DVD player is not a necessity. So if he went there and found that it was 70,000, he goes back, he looks for money, he works. When he goes back and it is 85,000, you find that he leaves it, says, no, I will not buy it. Because it's not a necessity. You normally have even this saying, without it will I die? If I don't have a DVD player, will I die? Will I change? No. Meaning that it's not a necessity, it is a luxurious commodity. Because of that, it has the elastic demand. A slight change in its price will lead to a bigger change in its demand. Then the third one, which we are looking at, the third factor is proportion. The third one is proportion. Proportion of the commodity. The proportion of the commodity. The proportion of the income. Proportion of the income. Sometimes we forget, but the proportion of the income. The proportion of the income spent on a commodity. And we say commodities where you spend a big amount of money tend to have inelastic demand, elastic demand. And those ones where you spend little money out of your income, they tend to have an inelastic demand. So we say where the proportion where the proportion is small, we say it is having inelastic demand. And where the proportion is big, there is elastic demand. An example that we can give here is we can give the example of matchbox. A matchbox is costing 100 shillings. So you spend very little on your income if you are earning 10,000 and you're spending only 100 shillings to buy a matchbox. Now, if this matchbox cost goes up to 200 shillings or to 250 shillings, let us say 200, it has doubled, 200 shillings. You may find that there is almost no change in demand. If it is there, it will be very slight. But if a radio costs, say, 150,000, someone goes back and works for this radio. When he comes back, it is 180. He may not buy it. But you not refuse to buy a matchbox whose price has changed from 100 to 200. This one, if you calculate mathematically, this is an increase of 100%. The increment is 100%. Change in price is 100%. But you may find that the demand for the matchbox may change by 2% or even 10%, which is very small. Whereas if the radios have been costing 150, they have gone up by 100 to 180, that means the increase is 30,000 over 150. It has increased by 30,000 over this. What you are going to see is 0 cancelled, and this one also cancelled, and you're going to see times 100. So you're going to have 300 over 50. You're going to see that the percentage increment is less than 100. The percentage, what is the percentage there? 15. 50, this one divided by that, this is about 20%. 20% is the increase in the income. 20% is the increase, the change in the price. That is the change in the price is 20%. This one increased by 100%, but the demand did not change much. But this one, which increased by 20%, the change is very big. So that one is a result of the proportion of the income spent on the commodity. When the proportion is small, it has inelastic demand. When the proportion is big, it has elastic demand. That's what we have to note. So we go to the fourth factor, which determines or which influences the level of a consumer's income. The level of the consumer's income. We are looking at the factors that determine, that influence the level of price elasticity of demand. That's what we are looking at. So we are saying the level of the consumer's income will determine what or how much change we have with the price elasticity of demand. It is determined by this. So we are going to